Pulling the damn screen.
Yeah, there it is. Look at that horse.
I don't see three people.
Change it so it shows.
Was it showing YouTube?
Yes.
YouTube says 2 people.
Well, look, I got levels. Look.
We've got levels now. Change the camera so it sees them.
Oh, see them? Okay.
Stab you.
Shit.
It was showing off here.
I mean, on our end, it's showing off.
Pulling the damn screen.
Hey, I got you live, horse.
You did. You heard me.
I got
say,
you
put him in the damn screen. Scooter, I still don't see him.
Well, there's like this big croc. I don't know why there's like this big croc.
It's
You want
delayed.
to move the
It's
table
like
over?
it's like 5 minutes. There, so we do see him. We do see him. It'll just take a bit once it gets over.
All right.
You want it only on the
Check
people?
YouTube out.
Alright.
Check
We
YouTube.
got audio. So just shift it over a bit so
I want to see.
this YouTube's gonna take a bit because it's delay. We want this. Focus on this.
All right. Well, we are going to have today our AS presidential debates. I'll first go over our guidelines.
I don't see.
All candidates will be providing opening statements.
Okay, that's fine.
Each candidate has a set time to provide a response to the 2 to 3 questions that I will be asking each of them. And they will be 2 minutes per response. And then each candidate will be given the opportunity to ask their opponents 1 question, and the opponent will have 2 minutes to respond. But it's optional. The candidate may not have a question to ask. And then we have a Q&A that opens up to the audience where we have a maximum of 3 questions per audience member. And each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the audience member. And then all candidates will provide closing statements. So we will have our candidates for president introduce themselves, starting from the left.
Hello people, this is PK here. I'm standing for the position of, I'm contesting for the position of president for the AS, and I'm a computer science major, and I'm a senior right now, and I bring my experience from a variety of background. I represent the different diversities on campus. I am an international student here. And I believe that I know better how to.
Just a quick introduction.
Okay. Isn't this the opening statement?
No, not yet.
All right. So, this is Priyansh.
Hi everyone. My name is Fernando Lorenzo. I'm running for the Associated Student Body President as well. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm currently majoring in cell molecular biology and studying economics as well. Also a senior student. I have backgrounds as a vice president for my own ASB committee back in high school. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Garrett Wilhelm, and I am a graduating senior in Communication Studies and Global Peace, Human Rights, and Justice, going into a master's study in Communication Studies here at San Francisco State. Currently serve as the Vice President of External Affairs in Associated Students and as a Civic Engagement Officer for the California State Student Association.
Awesome. So each candidate will be giving their opening statements, and after when I ask the questions, you'll be given 2 minutes to respond. When you get to 30 seconds, I will signal 15 and then count down from 10. So, PK, can you give your first opening statement?
Hello guys, I'm PK. I'm standing for the post of president of AS. I'm contesting for the elections this time, and this time what I bring to the table is I would say, why would you vote for me? I bring to the table a variety of experiences from different student orgs on campus. I've personally been a member of and also led like around 3 of the organizations that I was a part of. I've been a president in one of those and like an officer in others. So I have a variety of experience, and like I've dealt with what student needs are on campus as I interact with like a lot of students on campus as I'm a part of these organizations. And also, I'm an international student, so coming from like a different country and like setting to the environment was really difficult for me in the beginning. But now I've been in touch with like a lot of people, and I've understood like that we all share common problems. And if one of us has a solution to the problem, we all can implement that problem to implement that solution to our own problems. And I believe that I've also formed a team of individuals who were facing some problems which we were all facing like the common problems, and we all came together and formed a team as Empowering Gators, and we aim to get the student voices heard and get the student organizations into function, because we believe that student organizations are having a huge impact as they have in other colleges around California and like other colleges that we have heard of. One of the reasons I would say is because the core strength of the school is when the school students feel that they belong here. So we want to encourage students to like be a part of our team and like support our team in bringing all these services to them on campus. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Fernando Lorenzo, and running for AS President, as your AS President potentially, and I have 5 goals that I would like implemented, one of which is to put SF State on the global map and basically making it a leading provider of influence and culture. And so I have 5 goals that I would like to implement over the next year if I was ending up elected as AS President, namely a $20 minimum wage per hour for all students, faculty, and whoever, for all people at SF State. The second goal is to implement school-wide nap rooms and library kiosks where anyone at SF State would be able to go and be able to take a nap if they need to, especially when they're studying for so long for midterms, or if they would like to read a book at a library kiosk, I would like them to find a kiosk where they would be able to find a bookcase where they'd be able to borrow or even keep the books. My third goal is to make sure that there is representation for all races, religions, and sexual orientations, namely LGBTQIA, as I am also a member as well. The fourth goal is to make sure that there is also accountability and transparency, and basically, the fifth goal is to make sure that we would like to implement or reignite, I guess, the Summer of Love, similar to what was happening here in San Francisco in 1967, and has since created the hippie era, which I would like to reignite and bring back, the world full of color, and hopefully SF State could be something known of that nature to be world class. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Garrett Wilhelm, and I hope that you've seen my posters around campus. They have a platform of 5 items that I have talked about that I'd like to accomplish, but those are really just things that our Associated Students is working on now to get the campus to recognize the San Francisco minimum wage, to increase the amount of available financial aid to students supporting queer and trans students. So I listed those things because that's what we're working on, and I want to help continue that work into the next year. But really, the president is about representing student interests. The president is about building the relationships with the people on campus and the people off campus to be able to advance the needs of students, and to work with the board of directors to enact a set of goals that everyone agrees upon and works toward. So as president, I feel like I'm better qualified because I already have developed so many of those relationships already. This weekend I was talking to the 2 student trustees about the need for campuses to recognize the minimum wage on campus, and to try to get our student health services to do insurance billing so that our student health services programs have more funding to be able to provide more mental health counselors and more comprehensive family planning care to our students on campus. So I would love to tell you that I have a bunch of goals that I want to accomplish, but that's not what being president is about. Being president is about listening to students and representing their interests with all the constituencies that we work with.
Awesome. So for the questions that will be coming up, I will be alternating which side I'll be starting on, so each person has an equal opportunity of going first or last. So the first question I'll read off the first question. The first question is, what is one quality or experience that demonstrates your leadership abilities for this position? The first question is for Garrick.
The qualities. I think it's important to have love for other people, to be able to be empathetic, to be able to show care and concern for other students. This weekend, we were working with students at CSULA who are just absolutely distraught that their campus is going back on their mission to really serve the students in the poor neighborhoods of Los Angeles. And so to be able to sit down and listen to those students and show that you care and to hear what they have to say and to make them feel heard and to be able to help them find ways that we can work together to help solve these problems. So I think that you have to come up at everything with care and compassion. But also being able to recognize that you don't really know anything until you know it, right? So approaching these problems like the student is the expert, that people are experts in their own experience, and that I can learn anything from anybody is, I think, one of the most important qualities.
Awesome. Fernando?
One quality I would like to mention is tenacity. I believe I have that trait since I was running a 3D printing company when I was 15 years old, building 3D printers and being able to make 3D model scans for my clients. And I've been doing this for 2 years, and it's one of the primary reasons why I was able to move here to the San Francisco Bay Area and financially sustain myself. And aside from the other experiences I mentioned, such as being vice president for my own ASB committee, back in high school, I implemented various events and helped design around them, such as Sadie's and having afternoon tea with faculty. So, yeah, I believe tenacity is definitely one of the most important leadership skills that I hope to be able to show as your presidential candidate. Thank you.
For me, I would say, as I mentioned before, that I've been part of a lot of student organizations on campus, so that makes me in touch with the students themselves. And over the time of 4 years, I have seen students who were just willing to become a member of an organization to people who ended up being the president. And this was all because they had the support from the board, the officers that they had around them. So I believe the leadership skill that I have for this position would be, I am good at empowering people. So I believe that the students, if they are empowered, if they are ready to fight their own fights, if we give them the support and the means to do that, then they would do exceptional in their own fields, as well as serve the people whom they are working with. So I would say that I could empower those people. Thank you.
Awesome. I would like to also keep in mind that while you're listening to your candidates, your opponents' questions, think of some questions that you would like to ask them as well when we get to that allotted time. Next question. Recently, there have been various student protests and or demonstrations on campus led by different student organizations. What are strategies you would use to address these students' concerns? And we'll start with PJ.
I have seen so many of these demonstrations on campus, and in fact we have one going on right now. I believe these are really good for campus, as in like they promote the people's voice and the First Amendment to give a free speech. And also I would say that the strategy that I would adopt is like, these protests are good for like a cause, but these need to be organized. Like if these protests are just raising voices and just shouting so that others cannot do their work, these are not useful. If the protest is useful and like if it could be reached to a conclusion, or I would say I would take the matters where we could like sit and discuss about it rather than like on the ground just shouting about our issues. Thank you.
Fernando, same question.
If I was the AS president, I want to make sure that I would be able to provide my email for the applicants that wish to apply for permits to be able to protest in kind in the university. So I would be able to answer any questions and make sure that all the rules are set in place. And another strategy would be to have a sort of, possibly maybe an impending sort of permit function where people would be able to comment online just so we can get their input before the actual event might take place for any foreseeable, unforeseeable circumstances that might arise. And yeah, that's all that I have to say for now. If there's any other strategies that one might be able to implement, I hope to be able to try to enforce it with as much equality and unbiased, and an unbiased mind as much as possible. But the most important thing is that there is transparency and accountability, which I hope to be able to enforce.
So first of all, I think one of the bigger factors here that we don't speak about so much is how oppressive time, place, and manner is on this campus. So where students are restricted in where and how and when they can speak, yet these displays out in the quad can be out here displaying pictures and building structures on our campus that really bring a message that is simply meant to incite students. So when students are restricted, but people like this can come on campus and do this sort of thing, it just means that something's totally out of whack. But this year, when we were ready to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the student strike, some students were disgruntled that we weren't really addressing the strikers and the student activism that led to it. So what we did is that we held public forums to find out what students really wanted. We found out that they didn't want a celebration, they didn't want a commemoration, they wanted their own protest. And so being able to encourage those students and sit down with them and talk about what they wanted was very rewarding. That led to those students then taking over the president's office, because of mostly of issues of housing and food insecurity, but just to be able to be heard themselves. And so I was proud to be able to sit down and work with those students throughout much of the year. On the day after Thanksgiving, when the campus was closed down, I had coffee with these students and really talked about what their needs were and what we could do going forward to collaborate. So when opportunities came up, like we had the open house on the master plan that was going to change our campus and was an opportunity for them to be heard, I made sure that they had the opportunity to show up to those meetings and to make their voices heard.
Awesome. The next question is, which is an addition onto this question, how would you approach your student body and work with other departments on campus to deal with uncomfortable situations and or rhetoric brought to the campus by non-SFSU organizations? So this is kind of adding on to the last question and talking more about what policies, that was the timer, talking more about the policies that are dealt with the institution and also strategies and situations that you will use by being the head of AS. So Garrett, can you answer?
Oh, thank you. So I kind of already spoke about this. So the fact that our time, place, and manner restrictions make it easier for non-SFSU organizations to come on campus to build structures and to incite students, when at the same time it restricts the voice of when a student can be heard and have their voices and exercise their right to speech is kind of backwards. The person in this position needs to understand what time, place, and manner is. They need to understand that time, place, and manner is no longer student affairs function. It was moved over into risk management in the administration. So now it's even more difficult for us to work with the people that set these policies. So building those relationships is really what being president is about. And to know how the campus works, to be able to understand, that's taken me nearly the entire year to understand. So it really is important for someone who has the experience of working with all these relationships and working with the administration to be able to help move forward the presidency in the next year.
Thank you. Fernando.
I have said before that I want accountability and transparency as one of the guiding principles in my student body and as your AS presidential candidate. That being said, when there is any uncomfortable or controversial situation that might arise within the school campus, I hope to implement a sort of emergency meeting within the student body, maybe in the form of like an online sort of group chat. So we'd actually be able to better talk about this, and it would be more flexible than having everyone to meet in one place, because I know everyone has different schedules and work schedules as well. So making sure that I have the student body, like all the relevant student body candidates, as well as the departments necessary within that group email or group chat. I want to make sure that it's there and that we can handle this in a fast and timely manner.
Okay.
Yep. About the question, I would say the first thing we would do is before even getting worried about how we would deal with like non-SFSC organizations, we need to know like how are we going to have the organizations that are already on campus, and not only organizations but different departments, such as like the DPRC department and the student leader, the student organizations departments. So we need to get them to go work with us, along with us, so that we could know that like what actually is the problems that are going on around them. And if a situation like this comes up, then I would say we would take the feedback from our the seniors that we have on campus, and like we have plenty of resources on campus who have dealt with this issue, and like in many other forms, because it doesn't just come in one way. There's many ways like these issues can come up, and I believe that like it's always good to consult individuals who have great experience in dealing with these issues, because it's not something that you could just do it in a moment's notice or something you could be prepared for, because these are some things that you have never expected before. So you could ask for help from people who have already dealt this, and I would say my student body or my student government would be my first go-to people, because that would be the team whom I would be working with. And if these don't fall, and like if the non-SFSC organizations the things that they're promoting doesn't fall in line with my student body, then we would have to like reconsider, because that would be my first point of contact. So if the student board is ready for it, then we would go for it.
So we've come to the point in the program where the opponents all have my questions that they want to the opponent. So do each of you have questions? It's usually one question. Okay, so Garrett, if you have one question that you would like to ask both of your opponents, you can ask it now, and each of you have 2 minutes to respond.
Great, thank you. So, a president is a student first. So I would like to know where you feel you are in your studies per your GPA, and how you'll be able to manage a position that requires 20 to 30 hours a week, answering emails in the evening and on weekends, and have the time to dedicate to students and still be able to maintain the need to be a student.
So if I was elected as your AS president, I want to make sure I devote at least 20 hours a week. And I'm willing to devote overtime if necessary, and whenever problems may further arise. And next year I'm actually I'm actually enrolling in SF State's master's degree for postgrad in stem cell biology and regenerative medicine. However, I will only need to devote like 15 or 20 hours for that too. That being said, 40 hours a week will be the amount I will be dedicating to my school and to the student body. And like I said, I'm willing to work overtime as necessary. There was even times back when I was juggling acting and modeling before I got into science and cell molecular biology, during my teen years in high school. I had to juggle like not only acting and modeling, but also running a 3D printing company. And all of that requires full-time hours, even more than typically 40 hours a week at times. So that is why I believe I'm able to take on this responsibility of helping to lead the student body organization and be able to make a solid change, not only for just this year or even the next few years, but hopefully in SF State's history. So it's an optimistic goal, but if I'm elected, I want to make sure that we get there.
Perfect. So in order to answer Gary's question, I would say that being a senior, and I would say I'm at a point of time in my degree that I'm already done with all my hard classes, and I'm just gonna go for my GEs now. So I would say this is my perfect time to concentrate more on the off academics activities, because I'm really interested in building student interests. And as I mentioned earlier as well, that like the organizations that I'm a part of, they require a lot of input if you're an officer, because you have to plan the stuff for students, like what we're going to give them. And I believe this experience will definitely help me towards working on these issues if I become the president. Like dedicating time to this wouldn't be an issue, because like I already learned to like prioritize what I want to do and like fit that in the routine. Because it's a good question. Like students do need to concentrate on their studies, but I believe that these academics are aside, but like all the other experience they gather with that's the one that helps you to like go ahead and. So I would say, yeah, that would be the key.
Dr. Fernando, do you have a question?
Me?
You asked for
Read it back to me. Okay, well, I mean, it's kind of a pretty easy question, but if for any reason that like both of us, I guess, were not chosen to be running for candidates, would you, for both of you, would you seriously consider implementing the policies that one has that is within reason in the next year? This is addressing to both candidates.
So it's a great question, and I believe that we all three of us are sitting here in order to serve the students. We are not here for like our personal gains, right? So for first thing we will keep in mind is that like if we have an agenda that I haven't thought of, and if you have thought of, and it's really affecting the students, that would be the thing that we would take up as well. Because I believe that like we all stand for the students, and like their issues are our priorities. And if there's something you identified, I would also consider it, because it's already a problem and the students are facing it. So why not?
I don't think I would consider implementing any policy, because that's not really my job as president. My job as president is to really build the relationships and be the face of students, be able to speak on behalf of students. It's up to the board of directors, it's up to our professional staff, it's up to our student staff, it's up to the constituencies that we work with on campus to implement policy. So it's not up to the president to decide what gets done and who does it. It's up to the president to work in coalition with everyone else to have those relationships, to be able to advance the needs of students as he listens to what they need.
Awesome, thank you. PK, can you ask your question?
Yeah, my question will be like really general, as in like we already talked about the points that we were the agendas that we were fighting for, but I would just like to know that like how did you come up with these agendas specifically? What brought you to thinking that these are the agendas that you should be fighting for?
Gary, you can answer that question.
Great, thank you. So, like I said earlier, the items that I listed on like my flyers as issues that I felt we should address are there because those are things that we're already working on as a board. So they're things that I want to continue working on because we've already put in a whole year's work on many of those issues. Those are issues that the board of directors is addressing as a whole. They're not really my issues. And like I've said, the president isn't really the implementer of those things. He's kind of more the person that represents students' voices with important people. So I just came about those policies because those were the things that we were already working on and I felt we needed to continue.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, for sure. The question was like all the agendas that you came up with, like the 5 agendas that you said you would be working on. I just want to like what motivated you to put those agendas and like how did you come across those? Were there like actual student problems, or how did you come up with those?
So with the 5 goals I had listed as before, which was $20 minimum hour wage, school-wide nap rooms and library kiosks, representation for essentially everyone, as well as recognizing Summer of Love, and like making sure that SF State is a global leading university. I chose these goals because it's something I feel San Francisco, I guess SF State really needs. I feel that the minimum, for example, the minimum wage here in SF State is too low considering the extremely high cost of living expenses here in San Francisco itself. And I found $20 an hour to be a nice round number and a sort of livable wage for any student and family, or anyone being able to live here or like work here at SF State and be able to live close by, hopefully. The second policy, which was school-wide nap rooms and library kiosks, was inspiration through a best friend that I have, as well as a partner who works at Facebook. There were instances where I found library kiosks all over campus. They're unsupervised, and there's like a lot of books that were donated, and I hope that like that sort of goal would be implemented here, as well as the nap rooms, because I noticed there's a lot of people, a lot of students who are tired and might want to be able to rest for a bit, and there's currently no space for that at SF State. I want to make sure there's accountability, so essentially all of this like culminates to why I have chosen these 5 goals to be very important. And I see SF State to be a leading example for not only for the students here, but for the whole world. Thank you.
Awesome. We've come to the point where we have questions asked of the audience. So we have different people here from different parts of the campus, whether it be already on the board or in different organizations on campus. So if there's any students that have any questions to ask our presidential candidates, please raise your hand.
For everyone or just one person?
It can be for one person specifically or for everyone, but.
I want to ask you all, like, given the situation, as you all know, our administration definitely is taking advantage of us as students. We're being exploited, and our time is being just taken advantage of, and money. And I wanted to know, what are you all going to do in relation with administration? I know that Garrick, you said that you know, you're the face of students, you're the one who talks to important people, you're the voice who represents the students. So I want to know exactly how do you see that happening, and if you are the face and the voice of students, like, is it all students, or, you know, some of it is not all students. Some of these issues are for a portion of students on campus. You know, are those voices going to be considered? Are you like, you know, there's, even though the general student body wants something, there are marginalized students on campus whose voices aren't being heard in those wants. And so I just wanted to know how you all will address that, dealing with administration, knowing that they constantly are pushing back with moving forward.
You each have 2 minutes to respond, and since Garrick's not actually responding to shout this morning, I'll let Garrick start.
Thank you. So there are a lot of students whose voices aren't heard on campus. When problems came up at the Black Unity Center, Associated students went and wanted to work with those students, and they said they wanted their voices to be heard, and we backed away because that's what they wanted. So you can be the voice of students when they want you to be their voice, right? But in a more general sense, marginalized students, I know what it's like to be marginalized. I was homeless for 4.5 years. I suffered from severe mental illness. I come from disadvantage myself. I find it difficult to even be in parts of San Francisco where people have too much privilege. I just can't stand to be around people like that. I feel that I can relate more to students who are suffering on campus, We have an unprecedented opportunity in the next year where we have a new president coming on who gets to make his own cabinet, or her own cabinet. And we have an opportunity to really kind of reshape what this university can be. That really takes building relationship and being there and stepping up to the plate to help the next administration really recognize what these unmet needs are. So making sure that students have a place at the table in every place on campus. We have many positions where students have a voice in committees on campus that aren't filled because we don't have enough students to step up. So I'm committed to making sure that we have students in every single one of those positions. Where there's a position that a student voice can be heard, I want a student in that position. And so that means drawing from students who aren't always recognized for putting in those positions. It's giving students a voice who maybe think that their voice doesn't count. And giving them the leadership skills to be able to be strong voices for themselves in those places. I think we can also do more to provide grassroots organizing training to our students so that they're able to lift up their own voices on issues of importance to them.
Awesome, perfect. Infinity, you can answer that question.
So to address the fact that not everyone's voice is heard, I want to make sure that as president that I will fill every position available in the student body that is with the heart of the students and everyone associated with SF State and loves SF State and see it grow as a world university. I want those people that represents the voice of everyone here. A second solution I want to be able to implement is to have a sort of weekly town hall meetings. Possibly in the form of, say, like having it online for those who are not able to make it in person. So a sort of like Facebook or YouTube or both live. I want to make sure that there is at least like an hour dedicated to address anyone's concerns in this sort of either digital or even in-person town hall meeting. Like maybe it can happen every like Fridays, but we'll see like what times students are most likely available. And the third would be that I want to make sure that my email and my phone number is out in the open. So if there's anyone out there that has any complaints, as president, I want to make sure I give you that timely response. Just as how clients who have issues with Apple, Tim Cook actually replies to his emails or forwards them to any relevant departments. I hope to be able to do that same and be able to be transparent, starting directly with my email and phone number. Thank you.
I would say thank you for that question, because this is one of the things that I even came across. Unlike last elections where we didn't have like enough people to fill each positions that represent different student bodies, so this time I have come up with a team of students who were already part of different organizations on campus. They were leaders and they were already serving people like for the positions they are standing on. So this time we are going as empowering gators, and we have a slate full of people who are dedicated to making sure that like things change in each different field. So how I went across and got these people is like I went across and asked the students like what were their problems actually, because like when you just sit and think like what if we go and like write down what problems we face, we might find that like the other people around the campus don't face the common ones. They have like different problems of their own. So it's really important to have a platform where like a student is free and like he feels that like if he is feeling something that's not right, they could just go to someone and talk to. So that would be one of our agendas, that we will set up a platform for that. And also like how you mentioned that you feel that the university is exploiting us as the students. I came across that fact from like a lot of people on the campus that said that the university is spending so much money on getting new departments and new buildings, but they are not doing something for the students who are already in here. They are cutting out fundings from very different departments. So that would be an issue that we are majorly worried about. So that's how I hope that answers your question, and like that's what we are aiming for this time, that we completely change and make sure that the students are represented as they're supposed to be. Thank you.
Awesome. Josh, did you have a question?
Sure. I'm curious about Fernando. You said in your candidate statement and in your introduction about like opening SF State to like international trade and business. I'm just curious like what you mean by that and if that means bringing like bigger business into SF State.
So, in my statement, what I mean by that is I want to be able to encourage entrepreneurship in SF State, just as how I was encouraged to be able to pursue my own company in high school. I want to be able to I want to be able to, like, SF State and its students to be able to open their own businesses here on campus. So if there's any idea or any product that you would like to be sold, I would like it if SF State would be the foundation for that. I have seen food trucks. There's only 2 food trucks that come and with very limited times at 2 p.m. I hope to, as president, to be able to create a sort of maybe even like a national-wide like food truck event where like any businesses would be able to apply, and there would be like a plethora of food trucks that like customers would be able to choose from. And so essentially what I'm trying to say is I want SF State to be the foundation for everyone in San Francisco, or maybe even to the world, as an example where this is the place to create a business and to be able to thrive from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from the audience to ask?
Yes. Okay, hi. So, kind of want to acknowledge that y'all are 3 males. There's no woman running for AS president. So, how will y'all try to amplify women's voices through y'all's position? And how would you represent SF State at the state and federal level? Because we are privileged enough as associate students that we do get a seat at the table at local legislation, state legislation, and federal legislation. So how will you amplify the voices of these students, of female, queer, how would you do it?
Thank you. So the first person that's going to answer that question is Nikhil.
Yeah, it's a great question. We don't, and we would definitely love to have like females also running for this position, because it's like a leadership position, like not only this position but like all the positions on the board. And we kind of like went ahead and like find people who were supposed to do it, like who are interested in it. And like I found like 2 female candidates who are like 2 or 3 female candidates who are like really strong in the work they do, and they actually want to represent what they're standing for. So in my committee this time, I have a vice president of internal affairs and a vice president of external affairs who are both women. And it's not because they were chosen because they were women, but because like they were ready to represent what they stand for. Like one of these girls is really in contact with organizations. She does multicultural events with organizations in Berkeley and in Stanford. So she's really she's got other resources outside of campus as well. And she said, I'm ready to represent and I'm ready to get those resources on campus if needed. So I was like, yes, then you should definitely run for it. So we are definitely getting women on board. But the process is slow and it takes time. So like we also need women to stand up and like just say that they are interested or like they want to stand up for this, and we'll definitely hear them out. Thank you.
Hi. Yes, I definitely want to emphasize the point that we need to get everyone's voice heard, women and LGBT minorities, such as myself, and it goes back to where I'm able to offer my email and phone number if necessary, and I hope to reply within 48 hours. So expect me as your president for that. I want to, ideally, I'm not sure if it's possible, I would want a woman to be able to run for, to be able to appoint as vice president and for every other important positions. So if there's any woman out there that wants to run or even create a particular position, I hope to, and you have the heart of the people at SF State, then I'm all for it, and I will do everything in my power and in my conscience to do everything I need so you don't feel marginalized. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Alondra. I think that the first thing any president needs to recognize on women's issues is that they're not a woman. And that you can't always step in and speak for women when you haven't had their experience and don't know what they're going through. As far as legislation and really trying to advance women's issues and the platform that we've been given, I've been really thankful that you've been there for us this last year at CSSA and in the Capitol. I know you work with Ignite to advance women's issues. I'm proud that we voted to support medication abortion on campuses this weekend at CSSA. I have a track record of being in the Capitol and giving testimony on issues that are important to students. I've advocated that we also need to be in the U.S. Capitol talking about issues that are important to students. I was talking to our government relations today, and now aware that there's going to be some changes to our government relations that may make that more difficult, and that we need to be stepping up to the plate, and especially with the new president, to talk about how students' voices really can be advanced in those platforms that were given or that are even being taken away. So that it's very important that we're there and that we are taking the positions that are important for students.
Awesome. So those are our 3 questions from the audience. The program actually is now over. Actually, no. You guys actually have closing statements. So this will be the last time where you have about 30 to 45 seconds to make your closing statements to really finally sell yourself as potentially being the Associated Students President. So we're going to go in the order of PK and go.
So coming to the end, I would say that again, I'm running for this candidacy as a president to not only for leadership but also to empower students on campus. I want them to be able to fight their own fights and have a support system with them. So, and that would be capable. That would be only possible if you can get those students to go along, work with you, and then work on the issues that they are facing, and then help them out, like fight their own fights. So some of the fights that we have chosen for this campus have been the food service issue, that we have found few complaints about the food services. So like we're working on making those better for like students, making City Eats better, or like also other promotional food schemes like food trucks. And next one is like empowering student organizations. This is really important because the student organizations are a core part of the student community, and these are the ones that make the student feels like, that decide how the student feels in the campus. Others, the DPRC, we've come across the news that the support system for DPRC students is closing down in the library. They won't have any more accessible area where they could use the technology from the school. So we will be trying to save that, and that will be one of our priorities. And the final one that we're running on is the parking reimbursements. We found out that parking has been an issue, and we are ready to tackle that. So these are the issues that I'll be fighting on, and if you feel that my interests, my issues align with yours, please vote for me. Please vote for the state empowering Gators. Thank you.
Keep in mind, 45 seconds to 1 minute.
So my name is Fernando, and I'm also running for AS President. 5 goals in mind is to implement in my campaign for the next year, $20 an hour minimum wage for all. The implementing school-wide nap rooms and library kiosks for anyone to be able to borrow and keep books or to utilize the nap rooms for free if need be. Representation for all minorities, women, LGBTQ, and all races as well. Reigniting the World's Summer of Love, which occurred in San Francisco in 1967. And making sure that SF State is a leading global university. And how we're going to be able to do that is through entrepreneurship, accountability, transparency, and making sure that it's the place to be able to create and thrive with business, locally and internationally, here at SF State. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you. So I just want to express my appreciation to all of the candidates that have filed to run. The most important thing is that we're engaged with students, that we have the opportunity to be heard and to engage with students in the process of associated students. I don't see this as a competition. I don't see this as a win-lose. I see every person that wants to be involved should have the opportunity to be involved. And so I want to express my appreciation to every person that has filed to run for office. It's very important that you've stepped up the plate to be of service to students. Nothing is greater than sacrificing your own time and your own efforts to be of support to other people. So I'd like to use my closing statement to give my endorsement of the slate Ode to the People. These are people that have demonstrated leadership and that have the experience with Associated Students to know how the system works. That doesn't mean that I want to exclude anybody else. I think that there's room for Associated Students for every student that wants to serve. And I'm dedicated to opening up those opportunities. I think the one thing that does differentiate me is that I've spent the last year navigating the system and knowing how things work. So having a president at the helm that really has already built those relationships and is in a place to be able to provide the leadership that any student can come in and serve is important. And I think that I have that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to our 2019 AS presidential debate. Tomorrow, the vice presidents and the college representatives will actually be debating as well. So same here in this room, 1 to 3 p.m. So please come to that. Our candidates will be here, if they would like, until 3, because we still have this room until 3 o'clock, to talk with anybody, to talk about their platforms. And yes, so thank you.
Thank you. Can we get a picture here?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You guys can take a picture.
It's over here.